Hello and welcome to the Matchbook Exchange Irish Greyhound Derby podcast. As you can see, I'm your host, Ian Fortune. Once again, for the last time in this year's Boyle Sports Irish Greyhound Derby, I'll be joined by the master, Paul Lawrence. And as you can see, a special guest with us today. Harry Findlay has joined us. We have been sort of promising that he would be with us at some point. And well, here he is in all his glory. A man who has spent many a good night at Shelburne Park over the years. Harry, of course, Harry the dog, you were for many, many years. It seemed the dog seems to have been dropped a fair bit, you know. I think people more interested in your horse racing exploits and rugby and whatnot in recent times, maybe tennis to a point, but dog racing is still very much a big part of your heart.
Oh, absolutely. It's funny how I haven't thought of him for a few days, funnily enough, but just to mention the Shelbourne Park makes me think of Don Cuddy. And
Yeah.
the last few couple of years before he passed away, spending my time with him, and then we ended up even training one together. It was a blessing, really. And so whenever I think of Shelbourne, I think about him really, because we always used to watch the races out in that particular spot. You know what, Don Cuddy had that same absolutely never missed a, always on the same spot, and they were my great memories. And of course, Chiquita Banana back in the late 80s was the most exciting times of all.
Yeah, of course, you bought her out of the Irish Derby. She reached an Irish Derby final, am I right? And then became an absolute sensation in the UK.
Unbelievable, yeah. It was the heats, the first round of the Derby, and I bet a dog called Odell King, which was an aeroplane, would have been like 12-1 to win the Derby. And in running, Odell King would have just been a billion on. And I was giving it the aye-ayes. And in those days, there weren't many people who give them the aye-ayes. And Chiquita Banana come from another parish and got beat ahead. And about 20 minutes after the late race, I bought her for 11 grand. And I never had 1,100 quid, but I just knew what I just I went to see Jonathan Spark the next day. I said, Sparky, you bought a good dog.
Yeah,
and and then of course we backed her to reach the final at 20-1 and 16s and 12s, knowing she was a stayer. And in those days, bookies never had a clue about as me and Paul Lawrence, we build all the models around stayers, how short they are to qualify, all the each way stuff. And of course they hadn't conned on to that. And I backed her to win the 10 grand just to get to the final. And when she qualified for the final, it was what a night. I mean, Shelbourne Park in those days, it was just crazy stuff.
Yeah, mad stuff. Of course, Don Cuddy would have stood in the same spot every night because I used to stand in the same spot as well because you always had your stopwatch in your pocket. You didn't want to be a spot out on your various marks. And Don was, he missed nothing. He saw everything. That was the beauty of him, and he was a great man for advice.
Oh yeah, he was. Oh, I mean, we had him. Well, I had the privilege of having him over at my kennels, where he came over to, and he retired. You know, in 1962, he said he'd never ever go to Clonmel again. I'll never forget. 1962, the year I was born, was the last time he was at Clonmel, and he said, "Oh, you know what Don Cuddy's like, the most stubborn man on the planet." And from that day, everyone, from the day he walked out the field in 1962, everyone made it no offers that he'd never come back. And when he walked into Clonmel with me, honestly, I reckon about 7 people fainted before we got to the bar. And that was the type of man he was. And to see him back at Clonmel and to see his little fat face with all the people we hadn't seen for decades and decades, honestly, it was just great.
Yeah,
I miss him so much. I miss him so much. And I got the best of him because he was a tough man with his family. And to do what he did, 5 dogs in the American Hall of Fame. No one else has got more than two. Without a doubt, the best man ever put a lead on a greyhound. You make personal sacrifices, and I do believe I was lucky and got the best of him. I met him,
yeah.
when he was in his 80s, and I didn't even know who he was, but I soon found out.
Yeah, Don, of course, a legend, as you said there, a Hall of Famer on both sides of the
Oh,
Atlantic. What a man! What he didn't know about greyhounds wasn't worth knowing. PL, of course, we have to say hello to you. Of course, yourself and Harry have a long history as well. When did you first? I'm sure you became aware of Harry before you got to know him.
Yeah, I bumped into Harry in the Romford days. Yeah, when I was first getting into ground racing, but Harry was obviously larger than life, and we then sort of crossed paths when I started doing the Cheltenham race, and at Market Raisin, Ed Gretton was the clerk of the course, and he wanted to do a race at Market Raisin for their kind of summer festival. But the heats, where at Cheltenham, the heats were sort of Saturday, the trials, and then it was the Tuesday, and then it was the final either Thursday or Friday. At Market Raisin, they had 2 weeks between the heats and then the final. And Harry got his old dog off the Okigiali. I remember Okigiali from Walthamstow days as well. And
Yellow eyes.
Harry got him off the sofa, and he trialled. And I always remember, obviously Harry's big pal is Glenn Gill. And I always remember when we were setting up the race for the heats, you had this set of traps and then the lollipop at the end. And Harry was describing Glenn. He said, "You can't believe it." He said, "There's a set of traps at one end, a big lollipop and a sea of green." He said, "It's perfect for a straight greyhound race." He was, the enthusiasm was bouncing off of him. And that was the only reason I actually got Harry's number, was because he entered the dog for the race. And then I think the dog came second or third in the heats. And I think Harry,
he come fourth. He come fourth and he got knocked out and he got in his reserve.
Yeah, it was something like that. He kind of he didn't show really anything in the heats, and then in the final, I think Harry, in the 2 weeks, Harry and I think it was Don with you then.
Probably.
I think so, yeah. And I think they got to work on him, and he absolutely bowled in the finals.
There was a few oi-ois that day.
Yeah, so it was one of those. And then since then, I read Harry's book. I had his number, and I just rang him up one day. I was travelling to John Mullins's to see my pups, and I thought I'll give Harry a ring because I'd come back from holiday, and we just got chatting, and we was talking about greyhounds, and that's when we just got and hunter chasing and stuff like that, and that's where we got back into a kind of a regular association, really, and it's all stemmed with Lifford and the tote since then.
Yeah, I read your book in hospital, believe it or not, Harry. I was getting me gallbladder. I had gallstones, and I was in hospital for a week. I got jaundiced, and I remember sitting in the bed. And after about 4 hours, because I was on the antibiotics, I was right as rain. So I actually sat in the hospital bed watching the Winter Olympics, reading Harry's book, right as rain, getting a break from the wife and kids. It was sheer bliss. And like you're ticking all the names you knew in the book, and you're going, "Jeez, I remember that. Oh, I remember that. Oh, I remember that." I first came across Harry, obviously, in the steps of Shelburne Park. I was only a kid. I was probably only 12, 13, 14 years of age. And I remember seeing this big fella arriving in with shorts on and the eyes every time a winner came in. And I remember thinking, I was just fascinated by you, Harry. I'm sure that's the story you get from a lot of people. I remember Dad talking to you one of the nights, and I said, "Who is that?" He goes, that's Harry. That's Harry the dog." He says, "Don't worry, you'll know Harry in a few years' time. Don't worry about that." Harry, we are here to talk about the Boyle Sports Irish Greyhound Derby, but we have a few little subjects we want to get to first before then. But you mentioned Don Cuddy there. This Bocco's Diamond, said Don would have been a big fan.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, it's been a joy. It's been a joy to watch. There'll be. I'll do whatever I'll listen to what you two have got to say tonight, and as usual, I'll do whatever PL tells me to do. So my only opinion will be I'll be betting the odds on. Since the race finished, the semis finished, I'm first in line on the exchange trying to bet the just under 2 on, and I think we'll get that. I think there's been big opposition to him in the quarterfinals and the semis. I think maybe big anti-post positions. I think it'll be a punter's price on Saturday, and that will be the biggest bet of the weekend by miles for me. PL is short, go up in a straight line, as PL says. He's the lanes man, perfectly drawn. Outside, I'll be, there's nothing I like more than betting a well-drawn rocket, and that'll be my only opinion on Saturday night. Lump on that and don't bet it. You'll get that either tote or exchange. You'll be able to get 2 on, I think, Saturday night, and that it's a 3 on chance, and that don't come often. And it's a great thing to watch. So it's an extra buzz.
Well, speaking of Bocco's Diamond, you spoke there about the options of laying him or backing him and whatnot on the exchanges. There will be people with plenty of anti-post positions, and the exchanges are going to be busy. No question about it. Obviously, the exchanges with Greyhound Racing, it's basically a last-minute situation, especially with the Irish stuff, Shelburne Park on Saturday night. But the exchanges do give you great options. We'll get to the tote in a minute, but let's talk about the exchanges. As you said, those anti-post positions, there will be plenty of people trying to take him on, but I think there'll be an awful lot of people trying to back him as well.
Yeah, so I'll be honest, on what you see with your eyes, I was surprised. I'll be honest, I took shorter than he is now. And so, no, it will be a two-way thing, but I just think the tendency for a lot of people, the anti-post, I think, will have to affect it a little bit. And I think that's played a part in the price on the exchange in the semis and the quarterfinals. But as you say, the tote now, the tote now at 12.5% is the main reason for coming on, to be honest, is to thank so many people for giving it a chance, because
well, let's put this into context, Harry. You've obviously been beating the drum about the low total retention for a long time. You did it at Coventry, and now in Lifford it was down to 10%, and it's proving hugely successful. Now, Shelbourne Park decided that for the last 3 rounds of the Derby, quarterfinals, semi-finals, and final, that they would have a 12.5% total retention rather than the usual 25% for those 3 nights. And the first 2 nights have already come about and have been hugely successful. Huge numbers on the tote, certainly bigger than they would have been, and the dividends are there. It's clear for everyone to see. The dividends have been on a par or better than the SP on more than 50% of the races.
Absolutely, and they'll continue to do so. With the SP and the tote as it is at 12.5%, 7 times out of 10, if you race for 20 years with the same math at the 12.5 to SP, 7 times out of 10, you're gonna beat the SP with that takeout on the win and place on the win, and with a 10% takeout like at Lifford, you're looking at sort of nearly almost 9 out of 10, and not that that's an incredible thing, because obviously the SPs in greyhound racing aren't good enough, but it's a massive power shift to give greyhound to give you that other option. On Saturday night, I was on my computer and I was on the exchange. I was looking at the price on the exchange, looking at the price on the tote at Shelbourne, and that tote at Shelbourne was more than strong enough for me to have 40, 50 quids on there or on Betfair on 6, 7 to 1 chances. And that after 2 weeks to be able to do that as a punter, Paul Lawrence will tell you, all these punters can't get on. Greyhound punters have been so badly abused. And not only that, they've been so badly disrespected. Greyhound punters are the shrewdest punters on the planet. So many, friends of mine, Paul Webster, Graham, look at the people who used to bet Hove Dogs when we were all kids. They're all really massive, successful pro punters now on other things, but still do the dogs because they love the dogs. Yeah. And this can change everything. And what's so exciting, Ian, it's not just the fact that for 40 years I've been banging on about the 10 or 12.5. It's the fact that it's multiplied by Shelbourne Park, which is the best dog track in the world, the best dogs in the world. The GRI have been, if anything, definitely almost lopsided towards making Saturday night special. And they do so. Every night is top racing. No other tracks are like that. Wentworth in Australia is not like that. The Meadows, none of them. There's no other track that makes one night of the week so special as Shelbourne. And it's not going anywhere. But now it will. If it stays at 12.5%, if they extend the trial until, say, it wouldn't be fair to extend it just for Christmas, because you could say the Christmas crowds, where it'll work better than ever. The churn with the £1, £2 punters is going to keep the money churning over Christmas. But you'll get the people say, oh, well, it didn't work. And, in December, you got the Christmas crowd. The figures are going to be good. But no, do the trial until the end of January when it's freezing cold, when the Christmas crowds are gone and no one's spending any money. Do it then, and then you'll see an even bigger difference.
Yeah, I'm the same in that it's a bit of it's a package really. That's what I did a Monday column recently as well, Ian, and it was based around what had happened at Shelbourne, and I do think that this is what the GRI have done, and Tim Lucy. And I put it actually in the text for my column about Tim Lucy and how he should be applauded, and they actually took it out, which was a bit disappointing, because I really believe that if you give the customers or the punters or whatever what terminology you give, and they feel comfortable, the environment's great, the racing's good. Now, you're not going to always get that class of dog, but as long as the racing's good and it's competitive and you feel comfortable in the surroundings, and then when you do go to have your bet, because Harry's quite right, greyhound racing is the perfect betting sport. And he's right, it has been used and abused. But at Shelbourne, and the GRI have noticed that when people go there, they go there to have a good night out, but they go there to have a bet. And so let's get as much as we can back from the tote, but not at the expense of the punter going, oh, that's all I've got back.
I'm
So
increasingly more and more a tote punter. I'm stuck up. Like people say to you, "Oh, would you back that?" Sure, I don't get a chance. I'm not in the floor anymore. I walk into Shelburne Park half an hour before the first race, open the commentary box. I can pit around on the tote because most nights the exchange isn't an option for me at Shelburne Park. Yes, during Saturdays when the derby's on, I have that option, but
yeah,
most of the time I'm a tote punter, shall we say? And the idea, Harry mentioned it there. He can have his 50 or 60 quid on. Those are the most important punters, the 50, 60 to 100 quid punters.
100%.
They were the punters that disappeared. They were the ones that disappeared.
100%.
Yes, there are still men willing to have a grand or 2 grand on. They'll give out because they're not getting on. But that's because those 100 quid punters have disappeared. You need to have those lads that are able to go, well, I was afraid to have 50 quid on because instead of being 2 to 1 on the tote, it was returned 4 to 9. You know what I mean? And, you mentioned it. It's all about turnover. Listen, 12.5% to 5 grand is better than 25% to 2 grand. And that's the way to think about it. If you get these prices churning, and Harry has been beating that drum for so long, and in Shelburne Park, we do have the perfect model. We now have a great stadium. It's an absolutely stunning venue. It really is an absolutely incredible venue. I am the luckiest man alive. I get to go to Shelburne Park every single Saturday night. And listen, I'm there on Thursday night. It'll be very quiet. I can be there on a Friday night, which are increasingly getting better and better and better. The action on a Friday night is top class as well, but on a Saturday night, like there is no place in world greyhound racing I would sooner be in a Saturday night than Shelburne Park. It's a joy. My wife says to me, "Oh, any chance you get that Saturday off?" "Oh, I think that's a big night. I think I have to work that night." I hope she's not watching this because I make excuses not to take it off. I love going to show. I skip out of the house at 6:00 on a Saturday evening with a view to going. Lovely. I get to go to Shelburne, and it's a joy.
The thing is as well, though, is that it's not just those, like we're all enthusiasts. It's the new people that come to witness a great stadium. So that there has to be a draw there in the first place, and that is Shelburne Park. But it can be any track as long as the facilities are good and people are treated in the right way, as you would if you went to a restaurant. But it's when you then have the bet and you think, "Oh, this isn't too bad, is it?" And then you get the repeat business. People want to go back. People get drawn in. But so often these days with certain tracks, there's just not that effort. And I think that the GRI should be praised because of what they've done with a flagship track. And then like Shelburne, and then, you can kind of try to repeat that model elsewhere.
Yeah, we haven't even mentioned it though, Harry. It's like win and place. It doesn't really happen in 6-dog races too often, but the place in Shelburne Park, I've noticed over the last while, like I always called it a bit of an anomaly when, you used to do tipping in rooms and whatnot, or, MC for the night. And you'd say to people, don't be afraid to stick a place on because the dog could be returned 2 to 5. Yeah. The place could pay evens. And you're going, how does that happen? But because it's all, and the more money that gets into play, like the place market is just unbelievable at times. Yes, you might be unlucky and it may pay 110, but other times, it could pay 190 for a dog that's returned 2 on. Like it's a viable option. Yes, there's a touch of there is a touch more gambling in it because you don't know even what price you're going to get. But at the same time, that little each way. And if people are arriving, getting a good night out, getting a meal, and all of a sudden they can have a £5 each way in a dog, and it can pay handsomely, it certainly makes more appeal. And I suppose, Harry, that's where you're at. It just gives that even more appeal to bring people to the track.
Do you know, when you talk about people, and you said about the 10, 50 pound punters, the best thing about it, like you said, the fact that they can get on. But as PL will tell you, and I'm known for it, the punters I care about the most and the punters I believe that will keep greyhound racing going are the 1, 2, 3, 4 pound punters. And I mean that. And I believe that if Shelbourne extend the trial, which I'm sure on the math they will, just over Christmas, that place will be jammed with those small punters. And it's not just the fact that the difference between winning and losing when you go greyhound racing is more than chalk and cheese. And you need repeat business. And the repeat business that you'll get from making, instead of 12 girls going the dogs and only one of them winning, one breaking level and 10 doing 20 quid, the next day in the office, 5 of them are won and 2 of them are broke level and one of them's had a little touch. It's a whole different thing. And I remember at Coventry at 13%, I was independent, doing it all myself, my own money. And I remember thinking, it was only Saturday nights we got near busy, but just to the atmosphere, the difference in the place. And this will happen at 12.5% at Shelbourne, and it will have started already. But at Christmas, It's amazing the difference it's going to make for the £1 and £2 punters. It seems for a big punter to sort of talk like that and be that worried about the real small punters. Some of the industry people don't care for them. They think that they're there they go once a year. They don't know the difference between 5 to 2 and 4 to 1. They think I'm mad. Well, let me tell you now, boys. Do the math. Come back and tell me I'm mad in 3 months' time, please. And there's top industry people that have that. There's top industry people talk like that about small punters, and I know they're completely wrong. And as Paul says, Tim Lucy in the GRI. It's funny because all my connections, as you know, with the coursing and dogs go back to Cork. And when Tim Lucy was announced the CEO, well, actually, just before he was announced, I got a phone call from Cork, and I got told by the master, Noel O'Driscoll, that this was a Cork man, and that this was a leader of men who would be prepared, who wouldn't mind taking a chance. And he said, "Don't give up, Harry, because with Lifford in January, February, March this year with 8 races and hard to feel on a cold winter's night, I couldn't believe the tote would stand up, but it did. It did incredibly. But I was told that when Tim Lucy got the job, there was a chance that he would give something like this a chance. And to go at 12.5% on the biggest 3 nights of the year, we've got a great tote girl, Teresa Neeson down at Lifford, and I know she'd always keep the tote model working well. And Anne Prenderville from the GRI, she was down there opening night at Lifford, and she'd have done the homework and done their maths between them, and gone to Tim Lucy and said, "Tim, this is worth giving it a go." And he's delivered and given us a chance. And for me personally, it's a game changer, because if it falls flat on its face, I've got my chance. It was Alex Frost tried to do it at Toaster. Alex Frost wanted to do it at 6% at Nottingham, and to be fair to Alex Frost, he's put the money into this with the UK Tote Group. And if it hadn't been for Tim Lucy giving Shelbourne the chance, we never would have known. And fair play to SIS giving Lifford a chance at the same time. I don't think that was, luck in a barrel. I think people in the industry have said, look, if we're going to do Shelbourne at 12.5 on a Saturday and Lifford on a 10, and I believe in my heart of hearts all tracks will be 12.5. And I also know Lifford will never go up from 10. So hopefully, touch wood and all that the argument becomes 12.5 or 10. But one thing I will promise is that if it does go down to 12.5 for a sustained amount of time, it will never, ever go back up. It can only go down to 10 on course and maybe 12.5 off, but it will never, ever go back up, because that was the beginning of the end for greyhound racing in the 50s and the 60s. Winston Churchill knew. Winston Churchill was so much cleverer for not just the math, but he said that no tote should ever take out more than 10%. He said this in his 20s. He said so many things in his 20s that are just pure prophetic genius. And one of them was he must never, ever take more than 10% out of any tote. And I promise you faithfully, I think that if we'd have stuck to that in the 60s, I believe greyhound racing now, I believe coursing would still be going on, and I believe greyhounds would be treated like they were in Egyptian times, like sporting gods. And I believe that. I believe not just in the betting and the odds, I believe in the greyhound. You read my book, The Best. When Paul Lawrence rang me on the plane, he rang me because, why did he ring me? Because he just read the Big Fella Thanks chapter, and he knew it was true. General George Custer, they're greyhounds throughout history, and you've got the best dogs in the world at Shelbourne Park on a Saturday night, and every other track is going to be higher. In England, it's 33, 34 with a round down 37%. I've had 7 phone calls from Australia. They want it. When can we show it? I said, don't jam it up Saturday. Wait till after the Derby, and it'll be in Australia. It'll be in Australia at 8 in the morning. How can it not be? Imagine waking up in Sydney, and what, having Shelbourne at 12.5% and on Sky Sports.
There's one major problem with that, though. You have to listen to me.
Yeah, well, listen. I honestly, Shelbourne is standalone. It's standalone. Even I said to AK Bets, he's not a massive believer that the 12.5 will make that much difference. But one thing he did say was, when I said that Shelbourne Park's the biggest sports betting undersell in the world, he said that's the nap of all time, because we all know, and especially the way the GRI have gone. It's like they've played all their cards right. You've got to be honest. They've gone heavy on the Saturday night at Shelbourne. I think it's a game changer.
It's their cash cow. Like, Shelbourne Park it's propping up an awful lot of the industry in Ireland. But if you do it successfully, it's going to work out. You're right, though. Tim Lucy, there was plenty of people in his ear, but you still need someone that says, let's have a go. And he's had a go, and I've been very impressed. He definitely listens to a lot of people, but he certainly makes up his own mind. And I think we have the right man. And let's give it a go. And I'm with you. Let's extend the trial. Or if they're not going to extend the trial during Christmas, at least put it down on paper that we have another trial, but an extended trial.
The problem
give
is,
it 2-3 months.
Ian, the problem is with that. The problem is with that. If you stop the machine, you can't just start it again, because if you go back to 22.5, 25, you can't have it on. UK can't touch it, and Australia can't touch it because the takeouts are too big, and the punters won't. In Australia they pay on results, so they'll give the GRI 4% of everything they take. But if it's a bigger margin, and all that. So what you need is the extension to give it a go. Yeah. And like I say, take in January, because January is the month where everyone expects you to fail, and they won't, because Shelbourne Park will get so much repeat business, and all around the globe. And the integrity, the trainers, the dogs, everything's the best. I believe we're getting spiritual help, to be honest. The way the Derby, it's the only year in history that the Derby's been held up. They spent £4 million on a refurbishment, and I'll tell you what, they have to spend another 50 grand building some more tote windows. That's the only thing they'll need to do. Because from what I hear, the place is perfect. I wish I could Star Trek myself into there on Saturday night, because you can take that racing around the world. And Alex Frost and Tote, when we started off, I said to Alex, I said, do you promise you'll keep the dogs if you get involved at Lifford at 10%? And do you promise me, even more importantly, there'll never be any rebate in the pools? And he shook my hand and said yes. And because rebate is so important. Once any tote gives any rebate, the tote collapses. And when he said that, I shook him my hand and I said, Alex, I said, the track in Macau is closed. I said, you're the man to get Shelbourne Park dogs on the Hong Kong Jockey Club. And that is my ambition. They are to get Shelbourne Park Saturday nights on Whirlpool. Just the one meeting, nothing else. Once a week, a treat. Shelbourne Park, Whirlpool. And I'll tell you what, at the time when I said it, I'd have got 500 to 1. And now, if you go ask Bet 365, she'd give you 15 to 2 probably. And that's a big prize reduction.
Harry, any chance you could get me a job as a consultant? I could do a few extra quid,
Listen, that's what Paul. Listen, I couldn't have done it without Paul Lawrence. Not a chance. Because gradually, I remember when I said Lifford, he went, Lifford! And I explained. Because, and it's the dog people around Lifford, they're the people I've got. The people, I must thank one more. I've got to thank Spencer Sabat and the racing manager, Cole McGee, the assistant racing manager. I for sure thought it would be so tough for him in January, February. And the SPs, everything that the people like SIS and these guys look for, they delivered it in spades. And I want to thank them both so much. They've been so professional, in tough times, and they've delivered. They're the reason why this experiment happened, because they were taking 35 grand a night on all the races in midwinter when there was limited attendance. And that's why we've got here. And the only people I want to thank just as much are the punters that turned up those nights. The first 3 months of this year, freezing cold, mainly sprints, 8 races. But we know the demographic. Everything's on computers. The numbers don't hide. And everyone knows that they were spending over €135 a head every person who walked through the door. And the figure was actually more. And that is staggering. And that's why we're here. And that's why all the tracks, what England, don't forget, 33, 34. And I noticed a very shrewd quote by Richard Brankley this week. And if I was Richard Brankley, I'd be very excited by this. And because this Shelbourne Park stuff on Saturday nights, working with Alex Frost, they must have got it done so quickly to get it on to get the Shelbourne Park on tote, and now anything can happen. That 12.5%, brilliant. I saw it on Talking Dogs. Everyone's spoken about doing it. Everyone's said they're going to do it. Blooming so and so at Toast doing all this boob. I want to do it. Oh, we can't do this. We can't do that. All of a sudden, when it was on Talking Dogs, 12.5%, the CEO, Tim Lucy, Pistol Pete in Derry sent me the text. Me and Kay were driving home from the garage, and I said, pull over. And she pulled over. I read it 3 times. Tim Lucy, CEO, 12.5% Shelbourne, biggest 3 weeks of the year. I don't know you, Tim. I've never met you, but thank you.
It seems to me one of the things you've been most excited about in the sport in a long, long time, Harry.
Apart from
I've seen,
Bocco's diamond, that is.
Yeah.
it's not just me. It's not just me. Jamie Hart. We're going to do it at Coventry. We was the unluckiest. Jamie Hart was going to do it with William Hills at Coventry, but Ralph Topping. Jamie Hart was Ralph Topping's. He was the one who sold it all to Vegas. This is why Shelbourne will go straight to Vegas. Ralph Topping and Jamie Hart were going to come in Coventry and do this at Coventry. But Ralph Topping had a tear up with John Brown or whatever. Jamie and him left, and I was left doing it all on my own. And I thought, well, someone will come along. Bet 365 or someone will come along, but they stopped me. And now everyone's singing from the same page.
Yes.
Forget about that. Turn the page. Don't turn the page. Sing from the same page. Have everyone pissing in the same pot. That's what greyhound racing needs, with a low margin, and that's what we look like we might be getting.
I could see now Harry at the back of Shelbourne stand some night singing Jerusalem and getting the crowd to join in with him. PL. I'm not sure what he is like as a singer now, but I'd definitely join in if I had to. You know. Sadly though, he's told us off air he won't be at Shelbourne Park on Saturday night. He's too fascinated with sitting down on the computer, watching the totes, watching the exchanges, of course, watching the racing.
I can tell you what every single race is. It's really. I'm so grateful for the 3-week trial, really, and I can't wait for Saturday night, and I'll see there's 12 races, and just to find out that rumours are the win pool bets are up sort of 3 times as much as they were before, so it's pretty exciting if they can, and Saturday night, how can it not go through the 100 and maybe 20 grand barrier?
Well, I promise you I'll do this, Ria, right? On Monday or Tuesday morning, I'll be ringing Linda in the tote in Shelbourne Park, who does a wonderful job. She does everything really in Shelbourne Park. She's a great woman to get in touch with. I'll do a little piece to let's talk about how the turnover went up, and we'll give it a push, right? We will definitely give it a push and point in the right direction as regards the powers that be. All right, let's do that now. Harry, do you have any objection if we actually talk about the Derby final itself?
I was just about to say, listen, you got one thing. I won't have any opinion on the races at all. So you guys can crack away now. But I really appreciate the chance to talk about it, and to Zed for putting this podcast on, and believing in the greyhounds. The matchbook top man, he says that City Bet, all the big things in Australia, they take twice as much on the dogs as the horses. And thanks to him for doing the podcast, because I'm sure the greyhound punters have, if they've been listening to you two over the last few weeks, they've got themselves a few quid, and hopefully they're on Bocco's diamond anti-post as well. Cheers, guys.
You're going to stay with us now. If you feel you want to jump in, right?
Watching it back, and I promise to say nothing.
Well, jump in if you want to. Pia, let's talk about the final. €125,000, the final, the Boyle Sports Irish Greyhound Derby. I said it the other night in my piece with Kevin Hennessy. There are many very big nights in World Greyhound Racing. There may be races worth a bit more, but as regards a sporting occasion, Shelbourne Park and Derby final night is like no other. I know I'm a bit biased, but I also would equate it to one of the great sporting occasions in the world, not just in Greyhound Racing. The atmosphere, the knowledge of those involved, the noise from the stands at certain parts in a race tell you that people know what's going on. I bring it back to 2009 when the outflow off the second bend goes, and here comes the causeway, and all of a sudden you could hear the crowd react. They knew what was happening. It wasn't because there was a dog 6 lengths clear. It was because the dog that was just after going fourth was all of a sudden making a charge. It's a special night, a special occasion, and it's a special race. We've spoken about this derby for a long, long time at this point now, PL, and from the outset it was clear it was a very, very deep derby. Unbelievable greyhounds, and yet on Saturday night we could potentially have the shortest price derby favourite of all time. At the moment, that stands with a certain Spanish battleship, 1954. He was returned 4-11. My initial thoughts after the semi-finals were that Bocco's Diamond would be in and around the 2-7, 1-4 mark. Kevin Hennessy actually came in on my shoulder after the second semi-final before we recorded our piece and said, well, what price do you think he'll be? I said, no, what price do you think he'll be? He says, I think he'll be 2 on. And I'll say there'll be a queue of punters ready to back him at 2 on with you, because if he traps on terms, there is not a greyhound alive. And I'm not sure there's too many dead that could have led him into the opening corner. His run the other evening was absolutely unbelievable. 28.94, equaling his own track record. And I feel that dogs of his ilk were about a length back on Saturday night because of the cold. It was bloody bitterly cold. Like, I was doing my piece with Kevin after racing, and genuinely, like, I was shivering. I was actually giggling. I was that cold. But for you watching at home, it must have been just a joy once again.
Exactly. He was the dog that we said had lit up the Derby, and we kept saying, yeah, but it's deep, and we kept saying that there's a lot of real good dogs in opposition, but he doesn't really do too much wrong. That's the thing, and we kind of had a difference of opinion, didn't we, from the quarterfinals? In that I thought he missed it. You said, oh, he wasn't that bad a break, and it's interesting because I do listen to your stuff that you do with Kevin after. It's really, really interesting. And Kevin was the same. He said he kind of missed it. And he still seems he's just got that instant early pace. And it's not a bit of early pace. It's just awesome early pace. It's just that he's just a terrific dog to the third turn. And I'm not saying he doesn't stay, but the clockings he's putting in. And then obviously, if you break a track record once, you think, oh, that was great, and generally then you don't, even when you run in your next race, you don't get anywhere near it. But he's then gone 2 runs later, and he's equaled his same clock. It's just, there's just something really, really special. There's that sort of aura around this greyhound, and it's something that you, as a greyhound enthusiast, you just love to champion. This is why you get out of bed. This is why I watch videos for races like these, and he's got a decent draw, and it's just now actually Cheap Sandwiches is the only dog that I think he's got to negotiate, and from that, if he does negotiate him, we should see a very, very worthy champion in Bocco's Diamond. But there probably is that little anomaly in the early yards, I'd say.
The fact that Carrick Aldo and Bombay Pat were picked up in the last few strides of their semi-final is huge. Now, obviously, Bocco's Diamond was clear of them at that point, we know he can lead them comfortably. But they would have been 2 dogs that could have gone to the corner, technically, if he'd missed the kick with him. Cheap Sandwiches is the only other one in the final that can possibly match him into the opening bend, and even then he needs a bit of luck. He's going to be taking a step right. We saw the head on. I'm not sure you saw it. It was on Virgin Media TV. No, it was great. Great to have us. We've spoken about it. Poster. Yeah. It should be an offer for every greyhound race, certainly at Shelburne Park. Just make them available the next morning. Just run to the corner. Just all 10 of them. Just they're there for punters to see. Cheap Sandwiches out in trap 6 after about, I'm going to say, about 10, 12 strides. By the time he hit the winning line for the first time, he's out in trap 6. Now, the next night, he is a Lucky Julie in 4. While she doesn't have great early speed, she often paddles into the opening corner itself. She's a flying starter. She is a very good trapper. So she's a buffer. Boyle Sports Bob can trap. He could be a buffer. I just think it's the most ideal draw. People say, yes, that's not his racing line in the trap 6. It doesn't matter. It's the one trap where he can make an error and recover pretty comfortably. And it's going to have to be one significant error. Now, there is the crowd to talk about. There is the fact that it's going to be much colder. It's cold in Dublin at the moment. Like, we haven't had proper cold in it's months. Like, it hasn't been properly cold in Ireland since February, let's say. It's properly cold this week. Now it's supposed to break on Friday, get a couple of degrees up. So you're sort of grasping the straws if that's why you're going to impose him. The fact of the matter is, there's so much in his favor. If this was an ordinary race on a Saturday night 6 weeks ago, or back in the day, let's say when punting was punting, like, this dog could have been 6 on. Am I wrong in saying that?
6 on's a bit strong, but I asked a couple of Trudies yesterday, and that 100% they both said 2 to 5. But if I had to bet, or lay, maybe 3 on, I'd still be with. Incredible. I bet I'll definitely have to be with him at 4 to 11. 3 on maybe a Stewards, but 6 on's a bit strong. Partly because of what you said. Maybe if it was just an ordinary, and everyone was, they're hard things to have on your side to get you beat, but.
That's one of the factors, really, Ian, and you'd know it more than anybody else. Will be the atmosphere, the roar, the prelims. That will be the slight difference. But it's really, really hard to crab this dog because he's made a couple of little mistakes. It's really funny because in the quarterfinals, both of Graham Holland's dogs missed it. Cheap Sandwiches and Bocco's Diamond, they both missed their break. I don't know whether obviously it's just a coincidence, but they both missed their break and they both got round it. But with Cheap Sandwiches, we both said we were disappointed in, didn't we, with him getting picked up by a Lucky Julie. Now, he had what you might call a difficult trap draw in that we'd never seen him from trap 3, and we'd seen him in Tralee twice from 4, and he was moving off. I never like to disagree with you. I don't like to disagree with you, but I'm going to disagree.
You do.
No, yeah, but I'm going to disagree with you because I'm big on lanes, and I've got Cheap Sandwiches only going out to lane 5, and he's going out to bat lane 5, and because you've got to measure him with Bannable Jim, who I said to you always seems to edge in as himself, and he was still inside Bannable Jim's sort of line, if you like, going across the winning line. So if you take him across the winning line, I'd say he was about in lane 5. But he changed direction and came back in the ways going into the first turn, and he ran the bend to die for Cheap Sandwiches into the turn. As he came out of the second bend, he was going so fast. He was just saying, it was like he was on fire. It was almost like, I'm going to show Paul Lawrence and Ian Fortune how good I am from you crabbing me from last week. He came out of the second bend. He was where the Shelbourne Park sign is down on the outside of the wall down the back straight. He was almost on the hair rail. It was almost like he took this erratic course because he was fired up and he was out there to run the race of his life, and he certainly did. And he came back and did the 29:13, which again, prior to that, I kept saying to you, this dog's steadily improving. He kept getting quicker. He was going down. He got down to 29:18, and then we said when he was beaten in the quarters, he did the 29:34, and it was such that disappointment. But he definitely bounced back to form, and I'm just that little bit worried from trap rise to winning line. I just hope that these two dogs stay apart enough to let's see how good. Because I don't think it's a given that Bocco's Diamond is going to go smash and clear him straight away. I don't think it is. But I actually think Cheap Sandwiches can give Bocco's Diamond a race.
He's going to have to, or else it's going to be a one-dog affair, perhaps, because we do. For those watching on that have backed one of the other runners, they need Bocco's Diamond to get held up in some way, shape, or form. Because if he does trap on terms and do what he has been doing, it's curtains. But I suppose the fact of the matter is, it is a derby final, and it is a very situation. And it's not just the noise, and it's not just the potential cold, and it's not just the atmosphere. It's everything. It's the week that's in us. Like listen, the fact that he's trained by Graham Holland is a huge advantage. Graham is seeking a 4th derby success. Okay, only 2 men have ever achieved that: Tom Lynch, who trained Spanish Battle Tip to win 3 of them, and Russian Gun, and then Gay McKenna, who had 4 derby successes. So
who actually, Ian, I've been to Gay. I went to Gay McKenna's house with Lorraine. I've actually sat in his parlour, So that was because he is a legendary trainer as well. And he knows plenty about ground racing. So that's a good point there. Yeah,
I only sat in GJ, his son's kitchen, only about a month and a half ago before the Shelbourne reopened to interview him about Gay and about a couple of other bits and pieces. But the fact that that Graham Holland trains him is certainly a bonus. The fact that they've been there before, they probably won't do anything differently. So the dog is just going to come up thinking, just same old. It's worth pointing out, he's won 14 in a row. Like, it's going to be 15 in a row in Shelbourne Park on Saturday night. That's sort of largely escaped. Like, we spoke about Tono Charlie for so long because he was on that sequence of 16, but we never really got a chance to talk about Bocco's Diamond because it was through a derby and there's just other things you have in your mind. But 15 in a row would just be an unbelievable achievement to win a derby final after 15 in a row. Now, it is worth pointing out that with the exception of Jerry Melia, all the remaining trainers, Owen McKenna, Pat Buckley and Paul Hennessy, have all won a derby. And Jerry Melia, the one that hasn't, has been second in 2 derby finals, in 84 with Glencorby Celt and with Holy Cross Leah back in 2019, was it Rural Hawaii 2019? Yeah, 2019, I think it was. He's a Hall of Fame trainer himself, actually declared a Hall of Fame trainer. So, none of these dogs are going to lose anything for the man at the end of the lead.
No.
The fact of the matter is, if you do in pure form, we do have a red hot favourite. But let's talk about the remainder, and we've talked about cheap sandwiches. Callaway Kinnegar is the dog I think will come for a bit of money on the night. Just purely the fact that he's on the inside of Sing Along Dolly. If he does trap like he can, and there's no question, there has been a little niggle with this dog. He just seems to be getting better and better each week. I thought perhaps it was a confidence issue, but spoke to the owners on Monday, and they were very much of the belief that there has been a bit of a niggle. He's coming back to himself. He looks a superstar in the Juvenile Derby. He's so unbelievably fast that if he does better Sing Along Dolly into the opening corner, the fact that Cheap Sandwiches is drifting off in those early yards, he should have loads of room. Perhaps he can turn closer to the pace than he has been doing. We know how fast he is down the back. He stays on stoutly. A Lucky Julie and Boyle Sports Bob are a different scenario. A Lucky Julie, if she hits the lids, she's probably going to find herself taking a bump from Cheap Sandwiches. Boyle Sports Bob, well, we know how powerful he is. I just don't know what part of his race he's doing fast enough to get involved. I made him a 14-1 chance. That's how I priced him. Sing Along Dolly, she'll be about 16-20. I took a chance with her last week. Thought she had a great draw. The fact of the matter was, Cheap Sandwiches was, as you said, he was on one. Like, he just absolutely took off. And in fairness, for her to be beaten 4 lengths by him in 29-13, she lost nothing in defeat. Where do you see the potential dangers to the Graham Holland trained pair, shall we say?
Probably, I'd say Boyle Sports Bob, because Boyle Sports Bob can do probably a faster time than the other three. He's already got the 29-18 on the board. He's backed that up with 29-23, 29-25. So that's where I see it. It's one of those, again, scenarios. How does he get the run? And I can't. You look at these dogs and you get the traits and then you have to look at, well, that's what you think he's going to do, but then now how is he going to do that in the makeup and the trap draw in the races that they're given? And Boyle Sports Bob is one of those that he's not going to lead to win anyway, so he's going to have to come from off the back. And I think I've heard you as well chatting away that, and you're quite right in that if Bucco's Diamond does the 60-70 to the third turn, he's not really going to be close enough anyway, even though he's going to be launching a big challenge off the last, because the race is going to be over. So he probably needs Cheap Sandwiches to run a race to give Bucco's Diamond something to think about, and they probably need to sort of rub shoulders and that for him to turn a close enough third to get close enough at the third turn to then mow him down late. But Boyle Sports Bob has just got that ability, and again, you speak about the man at the end of the lead, Paul Hennessy is a master with this sort of dog, and in my life I've seen it so many times over in England as well. So and he's a dog I really like, Boyle Sports Bob, but it's a matter of, in the semis he came out so flat-footed. He never really got he got a clump at the start, didn't he? From March on Freddie, they clashed, and I've gone back actually this morning and I kind of looked at the way that he comes out of the boxes, and his inclination, Boyle Sports Bob, is just to move in the ways coming out the traps just slightly, which is going to help Bucco's Diamond in that respect. And that's the thing. A Lucky Julie has never been out of trap 4 in a racing career. She's had 21 starts and she's never been in trap 4. I think she'll stay fairly straight. I think they'll be all right. It's really what Cheap Sandwiches does. I think that's going to be the key to the race. I happen to think, again, I've watched Callaway Kinnegar. You're right. He's improving with every run throughout the Derby, because there was just that little bit of a doubt about him. And again, if that's right, what you say about the owners, and Owen's he's probably had trouble training him throughout this Derby. And we said he probably wants a bit of a confidence boost. He probably wants a solo trial. He just wants to, because there's no dangers, Ian. This dog is minding himself on the turn. He's just not, he's not going into a bend with his eyes wide open. And that's because he had a couple of traffic problems, I think. And it might be that he's got a little physical niggle that Owen's just having to keep on top of. But I just didn't like the way when he went to the third turn, he had a bit of daylight, and he just seemed to hesitate into the third turn. And I think he actually did it at the first bend a little bit as well. But again, you're right. He is going forward, but whether he's going, he's 29, 32 was it last time out, really behind Bocco's Diamond. That it didn't. You can't really see unless Bocco's Diamond gets in all sorts of trouble how he could get close enough to pick him up.
Yeah.
So
basically, we're just down to Bocco's Diamond again, are we?
Yeah.
well, we
What
are.
about the
We
undercard?
are.
Come on, the skinny ones.
Yeah, we are. But as I say to you, I just don't. I'm interested to hear what you say, because again, I've heard a couple of chats that you've done with the Talking Dogs podcast you've done, and with Kevin after the racing. So, what are you saying that Bocco's Diamond will clear Cheap Sandwiches immediately?
I'd be surprised if he's not. I'm surprised if he's not a length and a half in front of him by the corner, and
Right.
getting around him. Yeah, you were right though. What you said about Cheap Sandwiches the other evening, the racing line around the opening bend, it was obvious the night of Hawkfield Blue. Hawkfield Blue went up his inside in the opening corner, and he just ran around him like he was on scale electrics. Like, it was just an unbelievable corner he ran. Like, he does run a lovely line, and given the line he runs, I just can't see how he hits Bocco's, because even if Bocco's has a dog in his inside, I know he does run tight to the fence when he can, but I can't see him just jumping in on top of a dog.
Yeah,
I think
you're right.
He's a fluent bend runner himself. I just can see him going around him. And it's just, in terms of when it comes down to it, his brute pace is just absolutely unbelievable. Like, the argument being thrown at me as regards Cheap Sandwiches, like, it was Kevin Hennessy sort of said to me in the commentary box that time. He said, yeah, but he's only 3 lengths faster than him. I mean, he might as well be 33 lengths faster than him, because he's not coming from behind Bocco's Diamond. If Bocco's Diamond leads him, and it's a good 3 lengths faster to the third bend, like he's doing 16:58. That's like that. I can't actually explain how otherworldly that is. Like, that is unbelievable. Like, Ewan Taylor prior to this Derby was the fastest ever since that clock went in, and the track is running faster now, so it's never going to be slower. But he did 16:79. Like, he's gone 3 lengths faster than Ewan Taylor to the third bend on a night when Ewan Taylor, I mean, absolutely went stratospheric. He absolutely took off that night. And for me to think that within a few years the dog has gone 3 lengths faster to that third bend is just mind-boggling.
It's scary, isn't it? It's scary, really.
The fear we've had, PL, is that he's produced these runs through the prelims. You're thinking to yourself, well, he can't keep producing them, but all evidence was just he can. Like, the dog is absolutely motoring. Nikki Holland was there at the Derby lunch on Monday, and she said, yeah, he's in great form. Absolutely kicking up the grass. Like, what more can you ask for the Monday of a Derby? So, like, listen, I'm not going to oppose him. I think he'll be returned about 2-7. I think there will be money for him, and the way the SPs are returned, given this industry SP, I just think while there will be people looking to lay him with anti-post selections and situations, I think there will be a late flood for him, and I genuinely think he'll be returned probably 2-7. I'd be surprised if he was any bigger than 3 on, shall we say? Now, I hope Harry gets his little bit of 2 on. You know what I mean? Because Harry has to pay the excess. You know what I mean?
I've been accommodated at an average of 148.5, so that's just under 2 on. And I think I'll get 49 all right. I think the SP, it might be, if I was guessing, I'd say 3 on, and on the tote, maybe $1.40. But, that's how I see it. But my missus never has an opinion. She never has very, very rarely has an opinion. And without knowing who he was, she saw Bocco's Jr. in the quarterfinals. When he was out of 3 and had a little stumble and then just exploded, she said she's never, ever seen a greyhound go that fast in her life. Don't matter what they tell her. To her, that's the best she's ever seen. And she's seen a few rockets, but she said she'd never seen nothing like that.
Well, there you see the Matchbook Betting Exchange. Obviously, it's very early in the week, and there's an awful lot of water to go under the bridge. But 144 is available there for a few quid. 143. Cheap Sandwiches is next in around 6-1 there at 7. Boyle Sports Bob is at 18 for small money. Callaway Kinnegear around the 10.5 for small money. A Lucky Julie and Sing Along Dolly. Like, those will both be 30 plus on the exchange on the night. And while we have seen plenty of bitches win the Derby in the past, I think they are stretching. In terms of the without market, given the fact that I think Cheap Sandwiches will be led into the opening corner, I've gone 6-1-3 in the card. So my thoughts are out there, PL. What's your take on a 1-2-3?
This is what I was going to say to you, because why can't Cheap Sandwiches turn second behind Bocco's Diamond and stay there?
He can, but the fact of the matter is, he was picked
Paul,
up the
you know,
previous
you
week by
Paul,
Lucky
I can't
Julie.
believe you were saying that, Paul. I know you're on Cheap Savage's anti-post, but we punt together and we never have, other leaders staying second. That's a bit. I can't
Yeah,
believe you've
yeah.
thrown
No,
that
I'm,
in
gla-
there.
I'm glad. I'm glad you're here, Harry. No, I'm glad
right.
you're
Oh,
here,
it's so
Harry.
Well,
obvious
I'm
that the
asking a
Paul,
question. I'm asking
you
a question. I'm asking.
well, it
I'm
can
asking
of course it
because
can
he was
happen.
awesome. Cheap Sandwiches was awesome
Course,
semi-final
but
run. He was.
it's so easy to be
He was
awesome when Bocco's is a length and a half in
okay
front of you.
then. So, Ian, remember when Bocco's Diamond was in trap 2 that night,
Yeah.
and Cheap Sandwiches was in 6?
Yes. They
Now
both
I
missed
know.
it, and they were both charging into the corner.
Yeah,
Yes.
and
I
he was
will.
getting.
I
To
will
be
say one
fair,
thing. Bucko's Diamond has gone like to a
yeah,
different
exactly. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
galaxy since then.
But he was so he was getting crowded. Yeah, but this dog hasn't stopped improving, has he? This is what I'm trying to say to you.
Yeah,
You're
yeah, yeah.
right. Bucco's Diamond has improved at a rapid rate of knots from then, and I get that. And he was getting crowded on the run up. And Cheap Sandwiches he had a fairly clear run, to be fair. But I'm just going to go back and say, off the last turn though, Cheap Sandwiches, because he got a bit scary, didn't he? It was Barry Call doing the comms that night, and he said Graham Holland's got to win the time nutrition. He said, but they with Bocco's on, or is he? And he took a lunge, didn't he, at the line? Cheap Sandwiches. Yeah. But you're saying is that you're telling me now that Bocco's Diamond has improved much more than Cheap Sandwiches has.
He's twice to the track record. I think he won that race that night in 29.80. Like,
I think I was just trying to convince yourself, really.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I genuinely think he could nearly go a second faster than that track allowed. But no, you're right. Like, you're right to a point. But the fear is that if you were on Cheap Sandwiches without, that he slips in behind Bocco's and tries to stay with them. And then by the third bend, like, it's heartbreaking. Like, it's just
Exactly.
I'm not getting to this dog. I'm not getting to this dog. He's made a career out of it, as you said, Harry. He's made a career out of it. I meant to say, Cheap Sandwiches, partly owned by Dan Brazel, Harry, who, of course, a legend up the field.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. Listen, the Irish blood, the Irish coursing blood is that's what Australia needs right now with the stayers, and it's great to see the connection with the coursing as always.
Yeah. We'll move on to my father's race. That's obviously the Boyle Sports Irish Greyhound Derby. PL, you never gave me your 1, 2, 3. You're obviously going with Cheap Sandwiches to be second.
I am, yeah. And I'm going to go Boyle Sports Pub third. That's what I'm going to do. 6-3-5.
So I'm 6-1-3. You're 6-3-5.
A lucky Julie actually matched Callaway Kinnigar into the third turn. I say he probably just slightly could have gone in front of her at the third turn, but then he just seemed to. So he jibbed a bit, and I think Sing Along Dolly might just be a negative because it could be in his eye line a little bit. So I'm going to go with the monster that is Boyle Sports Bob. So he could even get up for second. He could. So it'll be a 6-3-5 or a 6-5-3 for me, Ian.
Yeah, my issue is that I think Callaway Kinnigar will get the better Sing Along Dolly into the opening corner. I think he'll probably turn in front of Bob and a Lucky Junior. I think that could be curtains. Onto my father's plate final. Knockeen Dazzler is the 6-4-ish favourite. 7-4 is available out there. I wouldn't be betting this dog until I see the conditions. I don't think I want to back him if it's 3 degrees. Does that make sense? Like, he's after taking off last week. He did everything right. 3:35, went fast at the third bend, comes home at 29:29. Carmack King didn't get the run, but he does lack that yard of early pace. That's there for all to see. Now, there's not a monstrous amount of early speed around him. It's certainly not in his inside. He can definitely lead up the inside 3, so I make him a huge danger to Knockeen Dazzler. But to be short and to be quick and to get there quicker, there's a little bit of 20-1 available out of Elite Josh. I can't have that. I don't know how he's not 8-1 biggest. Like, he's beaten a short head and a short head last week, gives them a start. He's running so strong. This could get tight enough up front, especially if Knockeen Dazzler's coming back to the field. You know yourself, tighten him up a little bit. At least Josh arrives with a rush. I just think he's absolutely flying at present. Just a dog that doesn't seem to get any love. Yes, he didn't win for me last week. I actually backed him each way, and I never back each way. I backed him each way, and I backed Sing Along Dolly each way, and I did the each way bloody double. And he's a short head away. Yeah. But I just think the price is way too big. Yeah. And I can make claims for Miami King. I wouldn't back for Fate Point Harvey with your money. Ventry Faith, not for me. But I could certainly make claims for Knockeen Dazzler, Carmack King, and Miami King. But at the prices, It's Elite Josh, 20-1. You know, you never know with the exchanges. It could be even bigger on the night. Like he's ranging from 10 to 20. Like there's a few 14s, a few 12s, a few 16s. So they're sort of up in the air as regards the fixed odds firms. I would say in the exchange, he'll settle around the 10-12 mark, especially if I'm bigging him up. If I wasn't bigging him up, he'd be about 8. People realise that what an idiot I am. But Elite Josh for me at 20, I'm happy with that all day long.
Yeah, I backed Miami King and Elite Josh in the semi-finals, and I couldn't catch my breath when
you must have I watched it 10 times, and I still thought Miami King was up.
So did I. I can't believe Fay Point Ivy got anywhere near him. But you know, c'est la vie. But one thing I will say about Knocking Dazzler, and I know you're quite right to be aware of ground conditions. We've mentioned this on a couple of occasions on the latest couple of podcasts we've done. But I will say a counter to that is that with Knocking Dazzler, that because he had the switching kennel, I don't think you can really underplay that either. And again, we talk about Masters at the end of the lead. Patrick Guilford went too far behind him.
He's not bad, yeah. He's not bad, yeah. It's not bad.
So I actually think that the way, and again, when you're looking at form, and I think and he'll back me up on this, Harry. And he always says this, look at the last line of form, because that is the most pertinent line of form. I have to say, I think Knocking Dazzler has jumped up from his Patrick Guilford form, if you like. We know how good enough. And I don't think you can ever underestimate. You could probably reel them off one by one, but Kirby winners, or the Kirby itself, Kirby finalists, if you like, and the class and the quality that they are. And Knocking Dazzler is that, and he's everything that I like in a dog, in that he's got that early speed. So I actually think if he does what he did in the semi-finals, he'll win.
Yeah. Any take of this, Harry?
That's Fay Point Harvey race. I'm more interested in the betting now, because I didn't think that Fay Point Harvey had got up, but that was the only dog that got over bet right on the off, because I got a bit greedy. I had 50 on, and then it was sort of 7 or 8 on the tote. Just before the off, it was still sort of 6.5, and another 50. So I didn't help the SP on it, but it was still better than the SP. But that was the only one that was really paying overs about a minute before the off on the night. But I didn't think, like you, I didn't think it got up. I was a bit surprised that it won. But no big opinion on that final. As I say, apart from Bocco's Diamond, I'm just worried about the tote figures, and I'll bet anything else PL tells me to bet.
Well, we're going the opposite direction. Like, I'm normally the one tipping the 6-4 chance, and PL's tipping the one of bigger prices. So I've gone with a 20 token, and PL's gone with a 6-4 chance.
They're just hard to get on with their bigger prices, but I don't mind a bigger price one.
PL, we're coming towards the end of the podcast, but there is a top quality card through the remainder. I noticed there's one particularly interesting 750-yard contest. Obviously, we would have all loved to see Tono Charlie running in it. He'd probably been starting about a 2-on chance, but sadly, it's come to the end of the road with him. He got broke up in a trial recently. He is well and good, and listen, he'll have a good life on the couch, and he'll breed a few bitches and whatnot. But you know, in his absence, the staying division all of a sudden becomes wide open again. Because he was such a star. There's a really good 750. Kinturk Road, last year's Stay of the Year is in it. Droopy's Comrade, a massive finisher. Hi J Muzzy, one of our ultra marathon stars. JT Craze made a very exciting start to a 6-pen career. KN Lady be any price. She'll be 40, 50 on the exchange. And Ballyhooly TJ is the dog I'm interested in. It's trained by Tom O'Neill, a brother to John Joe, and Ballyhooly TJ is the dog that ran up the Corncucullen to Tono Charlie. I think he's been running very well recently over trips that are inadequate. I think he's the one I'll be backing, especially with KM Lady in 5. She wants trap 1. She's out in 5. So I think TJ will get a run around the opening corner. The obvious ace in the pack could potentially, or the spanner in the works could be JT Craze. Very impressive in a 6-bend debut. He has that 4-bend class. And if he does get off the front and decide, I can stay 750 yards at Shelburne Park, that's where you could get caught. But I think you'd be getting good value to your money here.
Yeah, you're right. I actually thought Kinturk Road had some kind of squeeze here. Obviously, he was Greyhound Star of the Year, wasn't he, last year? Sorry. The Ballymac cash out breeding. There were a few Ballymac cash outs, good litter of Ronan McCuskers actually that were good at the Greyhound Trader sales yesterday. But he's one of them dogs. I really loved him in the English Derby. JT Craze. It's just
Yeah.
you know it. You're right. Whether he'll stay that far or not at top pace, I don't know. But it just makes for an intriguing race.
He won
So
his novice. He won his novice 7:30 at Waterford by 15 lengths. Now Waterford is like, it's often been described as a speedway in the past. Like it's a bit of a Monmore, but at the same time, like he wasn't stopping at the line, so it's encouraging. He was a dog I've often described as probably without a distance. He may well have found his distance, and that could be the key to it. It is a cracking card from start to finish. PL, you mentioned the Bull Falcon earlier on.
Yeah.
I see our good pal Untold Dollars racing the 575 last race.
that.
Be very interested to see how he starts. If he starts, he could be a big player. But let's get on to the Bull Falcon. You'd be interested in him in the 600, second race in the card.
Yeah, I mean, and I just, I backed him for the Derby, and he get a bit of short head, didn't he, to qualify for the final in the semis. He's already the track record over 600 yards. We both said he probably would have been the track record over a 575 yards if he hadn't done what he did at the second turn. But I think he's probably a better dog from Red. I think he'll get the run to the turn, and I think he'll win all right. And I think that'll be one for Harry in the second race. 7 to Bold Falcon. If you get a bit of evens, and Harry won't mind taking a bit of 10 to 11, obviously. So that would be me. The sprint looks all right as well, doesn't it? I think I'd like to see Road Exile win for Richard Colwell and Pat Buckley, and I think he probably can sort of reverse that Fair Warrior form with Born Racer.
It's an interesting sprint. That Second Treasure is a real pro, and the bottom Elite Kursk looks so talented in Dundalk, and he's been relatively lightly raced since, but he can run a bit.
Yeah, he was second to Broadstrand Sid, wasn't he, in the Irish Sprint Cup at Dundalk. But yeah, no, I just thought, all things being equal, he'll bomb it. He just fluffed his lines in the Fair Warrior final a bit. Road XI got beat nothing as well. So, I thought he would probably win. The ladies' race looks nice, but there's a lot of early in the race. So, I think that'll all be on the break. But Patrick Spitz will probably win that because she's probably the fastest away. But she need to be with Red moving off a bit.
No groupies Kathleen wages this week.
No, afraid not.
No wages for the needy and greedy.
On the easy list. On the easy list. What did you think of her, Harry?
Oh, just to try. It was insane, wasn't it? The semi-final run was insanity.
Insanity. Yeah.
Insanity. It was, she's a pup. I mean, it's just, I've never seen nothing like it. Never seen nothing like it.
Otherworldly. Yeah, she's on the easy list now. She did tweak something last week. And she'll be at least 6 weeks off the track, so they'll bring her back next year. But I heard 1 or 2 podcasts in Australia talking about her, talking to Dylan, and it's great. It's great that the word is getting out there. That a fella like young Dylan is involved in greyhounds. And listen, don't get me wrong, he didn't exactly pick it up for 800 quid at the sales, but whatever he paid for her, it was worth it.
Well, it was a freakish run, and I didn't know what you just said about the 6 weeks off in the tweet, but it didn't look like the same. It didn't look the same bitch in the final, did it? I mean, it was. I mean, even in your commentary, and it was that you said good commentators, you sort of know when things aren't quite going as planned, even when they're 4 in front, and that was true, though, isn't it?
It was true. It is true. Yeah.
She beats a top class field in 28:05 around Shelburne Park, and you go, that was a bit of it was a modest run by her, like, you know what I mean?
That's the way it is.
Yeah,
like the trotting commentators in Australia, they're all geniuses. They're great to listen to.
And Ian, Consolation, that looks a good race as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was just going to mention it because obviously Bombay Pat and Carrick-Aldo have been involved until the semi-finals. They've had just the week. It just might leave the door open. I wouldn't be just thinking that it's a straight match between the pair. Obviously, the laddie Daz in there, the English Derby champion. Short grip can go up fast. Yes, Extra Gain would be a big price, and Mustang Fever would be a big price. But I'd be interested to see what sort of price the laddie Dad does go off, given the fact that he's had that week break. And I'd say he'll be the one for money.
I think so, because I had a good look at this race actually this morning. This was one I went.
That means he fancies something. That means he fancies something.
Because of the fact that those two dogs you mentioned, Bombay Pat and Carrick-Aldo, they were knocked out behind Bombay Diamond, and Bombay Pat, on the face of it, was really unlucky because he got tangled up with
Second bend.
7 Beach out the second turn.
Mm.
Yeah, he just got pulled back, and to be fair to him, he actually showed quickening speed then into the third turn. But for 7 Beach, Reed short grip really could cause him the same sort of problem. Do you think, Ian?
Potentially, she's good to the corner. Her weakest part is down the back straight, and Bombay Pat did run past her, I think, in one of the rounds. Remember, into the third bend. The only night he was actually led, apart from the semi-final, he ran past.
Which we
her
discussed
down
that, and you were right again, by the way.
PL, you might as well just click and repeat, Control C, Control V. Carrick Aldo obviously is a great draw in the stripes. Yeah, I get it. I'd be interested to see what price the laddie da was on the night. I stuck 3-1 on the card, but I think that was more hopeful thinking, to be honest. You know yourself. I don't want to do the bookies' works for them. Like, I priced it up on top of the card to about 119, 120. You'd be amazed how often they copy you. So every now and again, you just bet them a little soft and see how they go. Let them make their own way into life.
Yeah, but if he comes back to that second round performance, and he actually beat Extra Gain in that second round performance, so you'd think if he comes out and again, just being off the fence, if he comes out running and short grip goes off, Mustang Fever's got that little bit of early, but I don't think he'll live with short grip and Bombay Pat either side. But Bombay Pat's got that trait of just not timing his start and then going. So he just needs that luck, because Carrick Aldo was in front of him last time, wasn't it? But he actually looked the quicker dog, didn't he, between the pair of them, if you went dog for dog?
PL, as someone that backed Carrick Aldo each way at 100-1 and Bombay Pat at 33-1 each way, you don't need to tell me what happened last week, okay? Like, it's painful enough as it is, you know what I mean? And this is on top of the laddie da last year, trap 1 in the Derby semi-final.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh, dear.
In all the world, ever since I was a kid at White City in the late 70s, all punters, not just Greyhound punters, I think that gamblers love the dynamic of the Greyhound Derby. I think it's almost a trick in the mind that if you can bet each way the first 6 in the final, it's of all the bonuses and this and that and reductions and all that. Each way for the Greyhound Derby and how the Derby works, first 3 go through. It's just, I think it's the most popular thing. Given the breathing space of, say, a Super Bowl or anything like that, I think the Greyhound Derby has a real unique special betting as a special betting thing, and it's just funny listening to you, because obviously semi-final night is what it's all about. Because if you're on a strong runner, you're no offers to be on each way and stuff like that. So Greyhound anti-post on the Derby is one of the great bets of all time.
I'll tell you what, there was some cheer when the announcement for third spot went up in the second heat, and Boyle Sports Bob had held on to the Bowl Falcon. You could actually hear the each way punters. You can actually hear the each way punters on the stands.
No, you couldn't hear me in England.
Not knowing the dogs, because I know Ball Sports Bob from last year. If you bet the dog each way to hope and places in the final, Ball Sports Bob, you're going to pick. And that's why in the forecast, if I have a forecast Saturday, he'll be in it for second and third with something else. But cheap sandwiches won't be in it. Although you can win the race.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's either win or bust. We're going to finish off proceedings just with the last race. Untold Dollar. Nikki said to me on Monday, PL, that she thought he charged the traps last Saturday night.
Right.
Or in his quarterfinal. Sure, not Saturday, in his quarterfinal. If he traps on terms in that 575, they won't see which way he went into the opening corner. That's what I'm going to say. Yes, Untold Dollar. Be interesting what price he is. He's not a dog. He's not a dog who'll be backing at even money now or anything like it. But if he was a fraction bigger, and we'll be keeping an eye on the exchanges, certainly the last minute, and of course the tote, we'll be keeping an eye on Untold Dollar. I think he's ready to take off in the finale.
That's it. Pat's got a middle on super fast Gordon there as well. He ended up with 5.
Ended up with 5. It might be a bad thing over the 575. A lot of dogs like to be out there in the 575. The hair is right under their nose off that last bend, and it might just course the hair into the opening corner.
Unfortunately,
he did like the long run to the corner last week. He did like the long run to the corner last week.
Yeah. So Frank Harvey trains Carnite Kate, who Harry knows very, very well indeed.
She's on the card on Saturday, is she?
Yeah, she's in that last race. Yeah.
She ran up the what was the Guinness 600, the Shelburne Open 600 earlier in the year.
She did. She led in the race.
I've
Didn't she?
met her. I'd like to have her as a pet. She's a lovely bitch.
Yeah,
Oh,
she is great.
you'd have her in the house in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
A blue. That's it, gentlemen. That's it. We've sort of glanced at 12 races for Shelburne Park on Saturday night. Our thanks again to Paul Lawrence and to Harry Findlay. Harry, you're going to be pressing that refresh button in the minutes leading up to the Derby final. You'll also be keeping an eye on tote proceedings. A lot to go on, but you'll be certainly tuning in on Saturday.
No, it'd be great. It'd be great to think that, you know what it's like on Derby final night. It's going to be packed, and there's nothing worse than being packed. You got the pint. You got to go outside, and you know it's a push to get on with the bookies. At least now, if you're going to have a 50 on the tote or £100 on a favourite on the tote and give a money shot, you know you're not going to. The price isn't going to be affected, and you know you're going to get your decent odds on to get a lot better than SP. So for punters in the bar, for punters around the track, it's the first time that's happened for a long, long time on Derby final night, and I hope they get stuck in.
PL, my thanks as always. It's hard to believe our 6 weeks are over. This is it. I'll have to have a few pints with you on Saturday night. When are you heading over?
Friday morning.
Will you be there Friday night?
Yeah, because actually I spoke to Adam Matthews yesterday at the sales, and he said he thought it was a really good car as well because he's got the pups.
National Public Stakes starts, National Public Stakes. There's only 18 dogs in it, but there are some nice types. There's a couple of good races on the undercard too. PL, we might even find one for you, right?
Thank you very much. Okay.
Now, just remember, it's 25% total retention on Friday night. Keep your powder dry. Okay. That's it, folks. The Boyle Sports Irish Greyhound Derby will conclude at Shelburne Park on Saturday night. Again, check out all the Matchbook social channels. Make sure you like and subscribe. Matchbook Insights is well worth a view. In terms of the football, the best in the business, the likes of Adrian Clark and Mark O'Hare, they are absolutely top class. NFL coverage is off the charts. And of course, they've got wonderful horse racing product as well. That's it for Greyhound Racing for a while. But hopefully we'll be back with you again in the very near future. But that's it from myself and PL. Our thanks to Harry the Dog Findlay, who was in great form once again. We'll see you next time. Good luck. God bless.
Thanks, guys.